Booga booga boo. Welcome to version 2 of the competitive Sicklewrath Saga unit tier list. This tier list was not made by me, but rather these pro players: Spaz, Clergy, Zbarvin, Yo, Mouse, and Justin. Yeah. Just a quick note before we start this video. This tier list was made after the June 11th balance changes. B tier in this tier list equals balanced. Something being B tier does not mean that it is bad. This tier list took a long time to make. Please subscribe and like. With that out of the way, let's get started. Staying in S tier classic and starting off in S tier in deathmatch, we have the Archidon. Archidons have a super strong early game in both game modes. Great damage for being a ranged card, and also have a bunch of cards that were very good. Moving from A tier down to B tier, and starting up in D tier for deathmatch is the Bomber. Bombers did get multiple indirect buffs, but the current Vault meta hurts them quite a lot. Not to mention that all healing and cure sources have basically received a buff. D tier in deathmatch since early game units just suck in that game. Moving down from B tier all the way down to D tier for classic and starting up in F tier is the Crawler. Despite being a passive unit in the game, Crawlers are just trash. They are useless in middle game, super matchup based, and even not being that good in the matchups they are strong in. F tier in deathmatch since early game units just suck in that game though. Moving down from C tier to the D tier and starting off in F tier for deathmatch, we have the Dead. Dead suffer from the same weakness as Crawlers, but they do not have the speed benefit of the Crawlers. The damage per population might be super duper high, but the slow speed and training time makes them suffer a lot. F tier and deathmatch with the same reason as Crawlers. Moving up from A tier to S tier and starting off the deathmatch tier list in S tier, we have the Eclipsor. Eclipsors being unable to be hit by a majority of units makes them very strong. Say that with their high health and passive healing, you have a unit that can only really lose to 2 to 3 units. This applies to both game modes. Moving up from B tier up to A tier and starting off deathmatch in B tier, we have the Enslaved Miner. Enslaved Miners are just a better economy unit of the two. Not only do you have the Chaos tag to get passive healing, but you also have the Light tag to benefit from Rage. B tier in deathmatch since Miner Troy doesn't matter that much. Staying in B tier and starting off in A tier for deathmatch, we have the Enslaved Giant. Enslaved Giants have insane range and super high AoE. The health buff helped the tanking power a lot, but they did receive multiple nerfs to the damage. High in deathmatch is much easier to set them up. Moving up from D tier to B tier and starting in B tier for deathmatch, we have the normal Giant. Giants are only strong in classic mode due to the current Vault meta. The health buff helped the tanking power even more than Enslaved Giants, and the super high tanking power and heavy damage make them very strong in both games. Moving down from B tier to C tier and starting off in C tier for deathmatch, we have the Juggerknight. Even though Juggerknights have slightly better stats per cost compared to other tank units, it lacks a use case that other tank units have. Doesn't have a massive hitbox like Ripriders or Giants, doesn't have a damage reduction ability like Spearton, not to mention the extra 50 gold per Juggerknight really adds up. This applies to both classic and deathmatch. Staying in C tier and starting up in A tier for deathmatch is the Magikill. Range buff and Magikill did help them a lot in non-magic spam decks, but now they have received multiple nerfs to their minions. Hooray! Magikill does too big to AI abuse, have terrible single target damage, and they are much better in deathmatch since the full army setup is much easier. Moving up from A tier to S tier and starting off in D tier for deathmatch, we have the Meric. Not only do Merics have insane burst healing and curing, but you can also make an endless shield wall too. They are low in deathmatch due to how the game mode is. There's only one good deathmatch deck for them currently. Yeah. Moving down from B tier to C tier and starting off from B tier for deathmatch, we have the normal Miner. Miners is the worst economy unit of the two. Not only do you now have the Chaos passive heal, but you also have a heavy tag to take extra damage from Swordwrath and steal heavy healing wisps. B tier in deathmatch, since it doesn't really matter what miner you choose. Staying in A tier for Classic and starting off in A tier for Deathmatch, we have the Riprider. I hate these fat chickens with all my soul. They have massive hitboxes that let them tank everything, super fast movement speed, and they combo power with Botanic Armor. This applies to both game modes. Ripriders are very good at that. Moving up from B tier to A tier, and starting off from B tier for Deathmatch, we have the Shadowrath. Shadowrath has finally gotten the damage scaling, which helps him a lot. Current Vault meta also helps him extremely too. So the downside of being weak to Fixate breaking, and the lower in Deathmatch since the Deathmatch meta doesn't help it much. Sicklewrath are moving up from the F tier all the way to B tier, and is starting off Deathmatch in the F tier. Sicklewrath. Sicklewrath are insane bulky to use as units after the buff. They beat every early game besides Bombers and Archidons. They're insane at defense and vault decks too. F tier in Deathmatch since early game units just suck. Spearton's moving down from S tier to A tier for Classic and starting off in A tier for Deathmatch. Speartons are the best tank in the game by far. Block ability reduces so much damage, you can do so much damage to the backlines if you do animation cancelling, and you also have some of the best stats per population. This applies to both games. Swordwrath moving down from A tier to B tier for Classic, and starting off Deathmatch in the F tier. Swordwrath are just in a much worse place than people, honestly. The animation changes makes the DPS really bad, Sicklewrath being strong makes them bad, and they require staff to play against Archidon early game modes. They're still good against heavy, these are the heavy mass power damage, but they are much worse than before. F tier in Deathmatch since early game units just suck in that game mode, wow! Sicklewrath are staying in the C tier for Classic, not Sicklewrath, Toxic Dead, and starting off C tier. Despite having super high heavy damage, Toxic Dead's light damage is still shitty. They rely on damage over time effects to do damage, but those are useless because of cure. This applies to both games. So yeah, that's it. Like, comment, subscribe, share, I don't know, I'm tired. Yeah, just like subscribe though, please, actually. That'd be very nice. I gotta go to bed now.